Hi, I'm Nick the History Kid. I'm a young patriot who loves history. Today, I'm in Morristown, New Jersey, the site where General George Washington made some big decisions. I'm going to show you something nobody knows still exists that was used right here. I'm now standing in the green. This is a 2.5-acre historical park in the center of Morristown. It has served as a military base, a militia training ground, and an area for public executions, and that's what we're here to talk about today. The Green's history began with the discovery of America. This historical ground dates back to early 1715, in a time when New Jersey was still an English colony. In the winter of 1777, the Green became George Washington's first encampment. Washington stayed at Arnold's Tavern, which was right here. The Green was the site of the Morris County Courthouse and Jail for nearly 75 years until 1827. It was used as a public executions ground. The last execution took place here in 1833. Before we go into the courthouse, let's talk about the murderer. Antoine Le Blanc was a French immigrant from Germany who arrived in New York in April of 1833. After 3 days in America, he was hired to work on the farm of Judge Samuel Sayer, a short distance from here on South Street. LeBlanc was able to afford a small room in the basement of the Sayer house. After only 2 weeks, LeBlanc decided he had enough with the way he was being treated on the farm. After drinking at a local tavern, he then tricked Samuel Sayer out of the stable, where he smashed his employee's face in with a shovel. He then killed Mrs. Sayer and hid their bodies in a pile of manure. LeBlanc then went back into the main house and killed the household servant asleep in her bed with a single blow to the head. The early history of the Sayre farm was peaceful. It is actually where Alexander Hamilton proposed to his future wife Elizabeth in the early 1780s. At this time, Hamilton was one of General George Washington's aides who was stationed along with Washington and his men in Morristown for the winter. Hamilton died in that famous duel in Weehawken against Burr in 1804. That's only 31 years before the murder on the Sayre farm. If I look older, it's because it's taken me 3 years to get permission to tell you the rest of the story. I'm now in front of the Morris County Courthouse in Morristown, New Jersey, where the LeBlanc murder trial took place in 1833, resulting in Morristown's last public hanging. LeBlanc fled Morristown and was caught in present-day Jersey City. He was returned to Morristown for trial right here behind me. Now, let's go back in time where this historical trial took place. I'm now in the actual courtroom where the murder trial took place in 1833. The case was cut and dry. LeBlanc confessed to the murderers. The jury only took 20 minutes to convict him, and Judge Ford ordered the hanging. After his death sentence was to be carried out, his body was to be given to science by order of the court. That's when this story gets weird, and I'll tell you about that later. On the day of the execution, almost 12,000 people came to the green to watch. That was 5 times the population of Morristown at the time. These staves were used during the LeBlanc trial to keep back the crowd. Now up to the attic. Over here. This is what remains of the actual gallows that were used on the day to end the life of Antoine Le Blanc in 1833. They've been in the attic of this courthouse for 185 years. This was a new style of gallows. The prisoner was jerked upward instead of dropped below. This is why this execution drew so many people. An interesting note here. I read once that some of the wood from these gallows was used to make some of the gavels currently used in this courthouse. Believe it or not. LeBlanc's body was removed from these gallows and made its way across the street where Dr. Canfield conducted tests on the effects of electrical current on the murderer's body. The doctor was able to get LeBlanc's eyes to roll around, his limbs twitched, and got the dead man to grin. Remember when I told you this story gets weird? Well, here's why. After the experiments on LeBlanc's body were done, his ears were cut off as souvenirs, and some of his skin was peeled off his body and sent to a local tannery. The skin was turned into book jackets, lampshades, a purse, and a few wallets. Where do you find these curiosities of history? The library. This is one of the actual wallets made from Antoine Le Blanc's skin. It's now been 185 years since the execution, and part of the murderer is still about 2 blocks from the crime scene. Over here, we have LeBlanc's death mask. Notice, his ears were cut off before the making of this for souvenirs. Over 12,000 people saw a man's life end using these gallows in 1833. Life is precious, and taking a life has consequences. Until next time, I'm Nick the History Kid, and remember my state slogan, New Jersey, from the Revolutionary War to the Jersey Shore, both history and fun awaits you.